Dawn broke over the South China Sea, painting the waters in brilliant shades of orange and gold. The gentle waves shimmered in the early light, but beneath the surface, a sense of unease was already building. On the horizon, the Philippine Coast Guard readied itself, preparing to escort a fleet of local fishing boats toward the contested Scarborough Shoal. The fishermen, many of whom had spent their entire lives on these waters, gathered in tight clusters, their boats bobbing gently as they awaited the signal to move. For these fishermen, the South China Sea was more than just a workplace. It was their home, their heritage, and the source of their family's survival. But today, the usual routine was replaced by a heavy tension that seemed to cling to the humid morning air. Suddenly, gray silhouettes emerged on the distant horizon. 9 China Coast Guard ships, not fishing vessels, moved in a tight, deliberate formation, their presence unmistakable. They were not here to fish, they were here to block. The radio crackled to life, filling the air with stern warnings in Mandarin. The message was clear and unyielding. The Filipino boats were to leave immediately, as China asserted its claim over these disputed waters. The small wooden fishing boats huddled together, dwarfed by the steel hulls of the Chinese ships that now formed an imposing wall across their path. The fishermen exchanged worried glances, their livelihoods and safety hanging in the balance. On the bridge of the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, the captain's voice rang out with calm authority. His orders were simple but resolute. Stand firm, avoid provocation, and protect the fishermen at all costs. The Chinese ships began to maneuver, churning the sea with their engines. Their coordinated movement sent waves crashing against the smaller boats, a calculated display of power meant to intimidate and deter. For the fishermen, the sight was overwhelming. Fear and uncertainty etched their faces as they realized that their ancestral fishing grounds had become the center of a dangerous geopolitical standoff. The tranquil morning was shattered by the blare of ship horns, urgent radio chatter, and the ever-present threat that a single misstep could spark a larger conflict. The standoff had begun. Neither side showed any sign of backing down, and as the sun climbed higher, the world watched, holding its breath, to see what would happen next. The standoff quickly escalated as the Philippine Coast Guard attempted to resupply over 35 fishing boats near Scarborough Shoal. The China Coast Guard, determined to block the mission, used aggressive tactics, maneuvering dangerously and unleashing powerful water cannons. High-pressure streams battered the Philippine vessel, shattering glass and injuring a crew member. Amid the chaos, a collision occurred between the Philippine ship and a Chinese vessel, marking a serious escalation. The impact jolted both crews, transforming a tense encounter into a full-blown crisis. This was not the first such incident, but the use of force and resulting injury marked a new level of aggression. Both sides immediately blamed each other, broadcasting their narratives to the world. The Philippines called it an attack. China called it enforcement. The resupply mission had become an international flashpoint. The world was now watching the disputed waters more closely than ever. Beijing framed the September 16 incident as a justified response to Philippine provocation. The China Coast Guard claimed Philippine ships had illegally entered waters around Huangyan Island, ignoring repeated warnings. According to China, the Philippine vessel made a sudden, deliberate turn, ramming the Chinese ship. They insist their actions, verbal warnings, blocking maneuvers, and water cannons, were lawful and restrained. Chinese officials and state media reinforced this narrative, warning the Philippines against relying on foreign support. China's message: it will defend its territorial claims with resolve, viewing its actions as legitimate defense, not aggression. The incident, in Beijing's eyes, was a direct result of Philippine recklessness. Any external interference, they warned, would be futile. China's stance remains uncompromising. The Philippines tells a very different story, accusing China of aggression and harassment. They insist their vessel was on a lawful humanitarian mission within their exclusive economic zone. The Philippine Coast Guard says it was swarmed and blocked by 9 larger Chinese ships, then targeted with water cannons. The collision, they argue, was caused by China's dangerous maneuvers, not by any deliberate act on their part. The damage and injury are, for Manila, proof of China's excessive force. The Philippines is documenting evidence for a formal protest, framing the incident as part of a pattern of Chinese intimidation. For them, this is about defending sovereignty and the livelihoods of their fishermen. Scarborough Shoal may look like just a small ring of reefs in the vast South China Sea, but its significance is far greater than its size suggests. This seemingly remote outcrop has become a flashpoint for international tension, drawing the attention of global powers and regional neighbors alike. Strategically located just 240 kilometers from Luzon, the largest island in the Philippines, Scarborough Shoal sits well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, or EEZ. This proximity makes it a critical area for the country's sovereignty and security. For generations, Filipino fishermen have relied on these waters as a lifeline. The shoal's rich fishing grounds provide food and income, supporting entire coastal communities. When access is blocked or restricted, it threatens their way of life and the local economy. But the importance of Scarborough Shoal extends far beyond fishing. The broader South China Sea is one of the world's busiest maritime highways, a global trade artery where over $3 trillion in shipping passes through every year, connecting Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Any conflict or disruption in these waters could send shockwaves through the world economy, affecting everything from the price of goods to the stability of financial markets. Militarily, whoever controls Scarborough Shoal holds a commanding position over vital sea lanes. It's a strategic outpost for monitoring and potentially restricting the movement of ships and submarines through the region. For China, establishing a presence here is about more than territory. It's about projecting power deep into the Pacific, expanding its influence, and securing its maritime interests. For the Philippines and its allies, including the United States and Japan, preventing China from militarizing the shoal is seen as essential to maintaining regional stability and upholding international norms. In 2016, The Hague's Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled that China's sweeping claims in the South China Sea had no legal basis. Yet Beijing continues to reject the ruling, fueling ongoing disputes and diplomatic standoffs. Today, Scarborough Shoal stands as a powerful symbol, a test of whether international law can prevail over military might, and whether smaller nations can defend their rights against larger powers. The fate of this tiny shoal will help determine the future balance of power in the Indo-Pacific, shaping the region's security, prosperity, and the rules that govern the world's oceans. Just days before the collision, China announced plans to designate Scarborough Shoal as a national-level nature reserve. Officially, the move was about environmental protection, but Manila and others saw it as a pretext for tightening control. By declaring a nature reserve, China could restrict all access, including Filipino fishermen, under the guise of conservation. The US and Canada quickly condemned the plan as a strategic maneuver, not genuine environmentalism. Critics argue that real conservation would require cooperation, not unilateral action. The timing just before joint US-Philippines-Japan drills was provocative. China's plan reframes its blockade as administrative, not military, using green vessels instead of warships. This gray zone tactic makes it harder for others to respond without seeming anti-environment. Most see the move as a clever step toward de facto annexation. The South China Sea dispute has now escalated beyond a regional quarrel, drawing in major global powers, most notably the United States and Japan. Their involvement marks a significant turning point, as the world's attention shifts to the contested waters and the potential for a broader conflict. Just days before the recent collision, the US, Japan, and the Philippines conducted joint naval drills. These exercises were more than routine. They sent a clear message of unity and a shared commitment to maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific. The presence of these allied warships in the region is a visible demonstration of their resolve to stand together in the face of rising tensions. Central to this alliance is the US-Philippines Defense Treaty, which obligates Washington to come to Manila's aid if it is attacked. This long-standing agreement has taken on renewed importance as the situation in the South China Sea grows more volatile. In the aftermath of the incident, US officials swiftly condemned China's actions, issuing strong statements and reaffirming their unwavering support for the Philippines. Washington's response underscores the seriousness with which it views any threat to its allies in the region. Japan, too, has deepened its security ties with Manila. As a nation heavily reliant on the shipping lanes that pass through these contested waters, Japan has provided patrol vessels, training, and increased cooperation with the Philippine Coast Guard. For both the US and Japan, China's assertive moves are seen as a direct challenge to the rules-based international order. their leaders have repeatedly voiced concerns that unchecked aggression could destabilize the entire region. Through joint military drills, coordinated patrols, and strong diplomatic statements, the US and Japan aim to deter further Chinese aggression. Their actions are designed to reassure allies and send a warning to Beijing that any escalation will not go unanswered. China, meanwhile, has responded with stern warnings against what it calls external interference. Beijing views these growing alliances as deliberate attempts to contain its rise and undermine its claims in the South China Sea. The message from Beijing is clear. Foreign involvement will be met with an iron wall of resistance. China's leaders have vowed to defend their interests at all costs, raising the stakes for everyone involved. What began as a local dispute has now become a high-stakes contest among world powers, with the eyes of the international community fixed on the South China Sea. As rival navies maneuver in these crowded waters, the risk of escalation and the potential for miscalculation continues to grow. The aftermath of the collision saw a surge of diplomatic protests and military warnings. The Philippines filed a formal protest, documenting the incident as a violation of sovereignty and maritime law. China responded with stern warnings, demanding the Philippines cease all activities near the shoal. Both sides dug in, leaving little room for compromise. Chinese state media amplified the message, warning Manila and its allies that relying on foreign support would collide with an iron wall. The cycle of action and counteraction is intensifying. Each side feels compelled to assert its rights, escalating the risk of miscalculation. With powerful allies involved, the stakes are higher than ever. The war of words is edging closer to real conflict. The Scarborough Shoal standoff is now a global concern. The Philippines, backed by the US and Japan, won't abandon its claims or its fishermen. China is tightening its grip, betting that persistence will wear down Manila's resolve. The world watches anxiously as the South China Sea's stability is vital for global trade. With both sides entrenched and powerful allies involved, the risk of a larger crisis is real. Diplomatic channels remain open, but a breakthrough seems unlikely. The fate of the shoal and regional peace hangs in the balance. In these contested waters, the line between standoff and open conflict is perilously thin.